Are recording. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on Blab very quickly. If you look at your screen, to the right of your screen, there are all the people that have subscribed and the people that are here. Josh Diaz is here. Welcome, Josh. I just processed your book order the other day for the new books Brandon Turner has written with his wife. The book on investing in real estate property. No, the book on investing in real estate, the book on real estate property management. I don't know. My head's going crazy. So it was 68 here in New York. Must be nice. It's not 68 here. It's 6 or 8. So along the right, you will see you can ask questions. Reading the rental property book now. Awesome, Josh. On the right, you can ask questions. On the left, there is I guess you can ask questions there too. You can hit tweet. I'm going to tweet and post that to Twitter and tell everybody that we are chatting. We have a lot of people watching. Wow. Welcome, everybody. Today, we're going to be talking with Karen Rittenhouse about wholesaling. We have a couple of questions from the forum post over on BiggerPockets.com where we had people ask questions. We're going to get those questions answered today. But Karen, let's start off with you. You were a guest on our podcast, show number 2, BiggerPockets.com/show2. I will put all of these in the notes. No, I'm sorry, Fat Elvis. I forgot to lock that seat. We're not, you're welcome to ask questions on the sidelines, but this is just going to be Karen and I today chatting. I don't see or hear anything. Okay, turn on the sound on your screen, on your computer. Karen, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you great.
Awesome. Okay, yeah, I'm real loud. So let's go on a little bit of a background with you, Karen. I've listened to your podcast, but it's been a while. And we are now transcribing all of our podcasts. So I just formatted the transcription page for you. So your podcast is now transcribed, and I got a little overview about that. I know you are a wholesaler. Obviously, I wouldn't talk to you about wholesaling if that wasn't your deal. So give us a little bit of your background. Tell us about you.
Great. Okay. Well, I started in this full-time 11 years ago. And the reason I got into real estate was I was looking for a vehicle that would protect my retirement. I wanted income, something generating income when I retired, because you can't make enough at a W-2 job to ever be able to stop, at least that I could see. So I thought, well, if I just have maybe 5, 6, 10 rental properties, and I spend the next 20 years getting those paid off, when I retire, there'll be what I'd call little oil wells just pumping out cash every month. So I don't have to depend on Social Security or anything from the government, because who knows. So we began buying rental properties for long-term investing, not for income today. And anybody out there who has rental properties knows that pretty much they're an expense, especially in the beginning. And so once they're free and clear, they start generating income. But it can take a long time to get there. So after a while, we just worked on buying and holding for about 4 or 5 years, actually. My husband worked full-time during most of this so that he could pay all of our bills. We weren't depending on our real estate business for any income today, and that was helpful. So then after time, we started renovating, which is a whole new beast, because it has so many moving parts. It takes so much capital. It takes so much patience, right, with contractors and all the isms that you run into. So we started doing it and had a whole new way to develop patience. And so after that, what we discovered was wholesaling. At first for us, that was difficult to find, because you kind of have to get them deep, right? You have to buy them at such a deep discount that you can then mark them up a little bit to sell them to an investor who's going to in turn renovate and sell. So to find properties that cheap, we weren't really running across that many. So we didn't depend on it as a kind of an option. We had rental properties. We had a property management company. We had a real estate brokerage. All these things grew up.
We just Had some technical difficulties. Karen is back. I forgot to start recording because that's how I go. And she has 130 rentals. That's where you missed. So, okay, back to your story. You have, 130 rentals. That is quite a bit. Okay, we've got some questions now. We have some, you know what, we'll go through that a little bit later. Let's find more about you.
All right, well, first of all, let's talk about what is wholesaling, right?
Yeah, I'd like to talk about what is wholesaling. How many properties do you currently own that aren't rentals, that you're flipping or you're wholesaling or any of that other stuff?
We'll do up to, I think one year we did 20 some flips in the year, and we said, okay, this is crazy because it's too much time and focus, and you have to have too many contractors and subcontractors, and it all just became too much. The first thing you have to do in any part of real estate is decide what is your outcome? What do you want to do with it? And it started, as I said, for us, it was just for retirement, but it's become a business. We opened a full service real estate brokerage. We opened a property management company. We have employees. So suddenly our overhead has gone through the roof. So we have to do a whole lot more business than the normal investor. So I'm not recommending that you have to do what we do, but I'm just saying we have had a lot of experience with all the moving parts. So for wholesale, that's the difference that makes it a wholesale is you typically buy it so cheap that you can then resell it to another investor who is going to in turn renovate it and sell it to make their own profit. So that's why you have to buy these properties so discounted. So it's not like a typical fix and flip or buy for a rental. You have to be able to let the second guy who buys from you also make a profit.
So, do you do anything to your properties, to these wholesale properties? Do you do anything at all before you sell it to the next person?
Typically, we don't do anything. Sometimes, well, like we had one today at our meeting that's a hoarder house. So yeah, we discussed, okay, what it's going to cost to clean that out. And so there are all kinds of differences. But as a general rule, I would say the majority of these come to us just vacant and dirty and nasty, and that's just kind of how we turn around and sell them. Okay,
vacant and dirty and nasty. Somebody said that in the forum, somebody said cat urine, it smells like money. Yeah, I like my money to smell a little different. So let's back up just a minute. You have a property management company. You have a full service real estate brokerage.
Right. Because we had so many properties of our own that we were managing, we started having people ask us, could we also manage theirs? And the law is in something like 48 out of the 50 states, you cannot manage a property that you are not on the deed, that you don't own, unless you have a real estate license. And we don't. So because of that, and because we wanted to manage for others, and we thought, well, maybe that will also be a stream of income, we opened a real estate brokerage in order to hire real estate agents in order to have a property management company and manage for other people.
So you said you opened up a brokerage. In my state of Colorado, you have to be a licensed agent to have a brokerage. So did you own it? Else is the licensed agent?
Right. We own it here. And then the broker just has to have a percentage. So you can have the broker get maybe 10% or whatever your state requires for them to be a partial owner.
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's a neat way around it because, yeah, being a real estate agent is, it can be tough. I am a real estate agent in the state of Colorado, and I have one retail client right now, and it's kind of a difficult situation because they want to sell their house and they want to buy a new house, and our market is super tight. So every house they see and like is already under contract by the time we get to writing up an offer. So there's a lot of negotiation and time monkey business. Yes.
Yeah, so we actually had the agents and owners, but then because we had such a busy business and so many properties we were managing people as well, we ended up hiring staff to actually handle all that because our brokers are too busy to handle the day-to-day of property management.
And I believe
it just grows and grows and grows. It was never a plan. It just keeps happening.
it's a good problem to have. I have too much business. So take me through a typical wholesale deal. How do you find the property to purchase? What are the steps to get it under contract, get it sold, yada, yada, yada?
Right. So we do a lot of marketing. Our office itself, we spend about $10,000 a month. I know people in California, and when I tell them I spend that, they just think that's nothing, and they laugh, because they can't do anything in California for that. But so these numbers are all going to be general. I live in North Carolina. It's all going to be dependent on where you are and your goals. But we get calls, we get leads calling in, and of course our marketing lets people know that we're not the end user, we're not going to pay retail, and it even says, of course, we buy ugly houses because that's our franchise. So a lot of people have distressed, horrible, rundown, busted up properties that they know they can't sell on the retail market, and they're very happy to hear from us. It's a solution, right? Oh, good. Can you come look at my house? And sometimes they've lived in it forever and just never done anything with it, and they're maybe moving to a retirement home. Sometimes it's an inheritance. They got mom and dad's house, and mom and dad lived in it for 50 years and never did anything. Or they know it's distressed and damaged and they inherited it, but they live out of state and they can't fix it up to put it on the retail market. Or, there's just so many reasons people have these vacant, maybe it's a burned out landlord and a tenant house and I'm not putting another dime in it. Take it, please. So there are a lot of reasons people sell these properties in this condition, but it's hard for them to sell properties in this condition. So we come in and we look and we estimate, of course, what its after repaired value is, what the retail value would be if it was fixed. Then we have to estimate what it's going to cost to fix it. And then we go from there to figure out what we can buy it for, because we also have to drop down even lower, knowing that the person who buys it from us needs to make a profit. So when you take out all those numbers, you come up with a very low price. And of course, a lot of sellers are shocked or horrified, don't want to do it. That's always fine. But a whole lot of them do, enough that we can buy 6 to 8 a month. So we're really a solution for a lot of people.
You're really 6 or 8 a month. Now that's strictly wholesaling. You buy these properties. Okay, so let's talk about what you do. I thought that wholesaling was assigning the contract, and you had mentioned, we had a brief chat yesterday, you had mentioned a double close. Do you ever assign your contracts, or do you always double close?
Those are all different topics. Double close is its own thing. Assignment is its own thing. Wholesaling is its own thing. And I think that's where people get really confused and overwhelmed, is they're throwing all the different terminology into one paragraph. And so they can't figure it out because it really doesn't go together. So wholesaling, we've discussed, you buy at a really low price, you mark it up a little bit, sell it to someone who's going to then renovate and resell it, typically. Is you don't buy the property. You're just dealing with the contract, the purchase and sale agreement. So you get a seller to agree to a price, say $50,000, and you get it under contract. You're going to buy it for $50,000. You find someone who will buy that from you, says, hey, I'll pay $55,000 for that house. So you say, great. You assign that piece of paper to them, and they're going to go to the closing and buy the house for $55,000, and you get $5,000 in between. But you never bought it, you never owned it, you were never on the deed, never on title.
Okay, so
that's how and a wholesaler are different. Wholesale, you close, you own it, you're on the title and the deed. Then you find a buyer, you sell it. With an assignment, you never buy it, you never close on it.
Do you personally buy the property? You're on the deed. How long are you on the deed? Are you looking for somebody to buy the property while you're waiting to close? How long do you have your closing period?
Right. Typically, all we're doing now is cash. We buy and sell cash, so it's really fast, which is nice. So we typically, of course, try to sell before we've closed. And if we sell before we close, it's either an assignment or, as you said, double close, which we'll discuss in a minute. Or, usually it's all within.
Okay, so you said usually it's within 30 days.
Yeah, typically the buy and sell, the whole process happens in the same month because it is all cash. And so you don't have to wait on lenders and all that stuff. And it's as is, where is, so you don't have to wait on inspections. So these things move very quickly.
And how does title work with this? Do you get title on your properties, or do you just buy them as is? And
yeah, as is, where is. And yeah, you can certainly, sometimes in the past, we've even had title work to get a property checked before we purchase it. And, you can certainly do that at any time in the process. But most of what this is we just go out and look at it and buy it. If we don't close on it, we don't have any title work or anything done. If we close on it, the attorney does a title search before the closing, if our name's going to be on the deed.
Okay. And then when you sell your property, I'm caught up in the retail world right now where my sellers are selling a house and they have to get that title work done, and then they're buying another property, so they have to get that title work done. You're in North Carolina, so are you an attorney closing state?
Yes.
Okay. We're in Colorado, we're not attorney closing.
It's usually the buyer who's going to get the title work done because they care before they close on it what the title looks like. The seller doesn't need the title work done, doesn't affect them. They already own the property. They're stuck with the title as is. But the buyers, will typically want to get the title checked to make sure they're getting the title free and clear, that there aren't liens or something that are hidden on there.
Okay. And somebody had a question. Isn't that called wholetailing when you close on the property, then sell to the rehabber as is?
That's wholesaling. Wholetailing is when we do work to it. For example, we get it structurally sound, and then we can sell it to some less experienced renovator, or maybe we can sell a hotel property to an end user who wants to put in some sweat equity and, buy it cheaper, but it is willing to do some of the work. Then with a wholesale, we don't do anything, or an assignment, we don't do anything. With a hotel, we do just a little bit. Or if, say, for example, somebody comes along who wants to get a loan, needs FHA approval, FHA is not going to approve a home that's trashed. It has to be functional. People have to be able to live in it to get an FHA loan. So you have to make sure, I actually wrote down some notes here. What's the word I'm looking for? Yeah, all the mechanical. That was the big word I couldn't. All the mechanicals working, like HVAC and plumbing. You have to make sure there's some life left in the roof. You have to make sure it's livable for an FHA approval. So we get it to that state, but we don't do anything like carpet, paint, worry about countertops or new bathtubs or plumbing. I mean, plumbing, yes, but not any of the fixtures. So that's what we consider a hotel. It would never sell on a retail market, but it's livable.
Okay, great.
And now we've got wholesaling, we've got assignments, and we've got wholetailing, and they're all very different. So you can see where people get confused when they throw them all into the same sentence.
Right. Yeah, and I see a lot of people on BiggerPockets calling all of that wholesaling.
Right.
And I guess it's
then there's
the wholesaling concept.
There's discussion and debate back and forth all the time, and it's because they're all talking about a slightly different real estate technique, and they're all good, but they're all different.
Right. Okay, so I'm scrolling up through here and looking at questions now. We've got one that says, if you have an opportunity to buy cash versus hard cash lenders, which way should one hit first?
Well, it would depend on cost, right? You're always just looking at your bottom line, your cost. Right?
Yeah, I think that if you're going to get out of the property really soon, you might as well use your cash. If you know you've got somebody to sell it to in 5 days, then you're not paying any of the hard money property or hard money costs.
Holding longer, like for a rehab or something where it's very cash intensive and it's going to be 6-9 months, that's when we go looking for other money because we don't want ours tied up that long. Yeah.
Right. So you have a pipeline of deals coming in, and then you have also, I'm assuming, a cash buyer list where you call them and say, hey, I've got this. Do you want to buy it? How does that work when you get rid of your property, when you sell it or assign it or?
Right. And a lot of people want to know how to make a list. And a good list just takes time. All of this takes time to develop. You can always create a list, but it's not necessarily a good list, right? Every time you go to a meeting, like you go to your real estate investor meeting or any kind of meeting, they have you sign in when you go in the door. And that's how they build their list, because they get your name, your email address, and all that. But of course, most of those people never do anything. So it's a long, nice list, but it's not really a good list because they're not really active. So over time, as you find good deals, and when you have a good deal and you take it to an investor meeting, you're going to find people who want to buy it. When you start being known to have good deals, then people start coming to you, even from out of state. And so it gets easier. But starting up, it's a matter of having your face out there everywhere, like going to the investor meetings, real estate investor meetings, REIA meetings, whatever there is in your area. Another great place to go is landlord association meetings, because if you have any groups of landlords that get together in your area, they're not talking about investing. They actually own real estate, and they're usually looking for more. So that's a good place to go and say, I have deals. Maybe go online to like meetup.com. There's a lot. I was surprised. I just checked recently in our area just to see if there were meetup.com, and I looked for real estate investing, real estate anything. And there are a lot of groups locally. Doesn't mean they're doing anything, but it's a place to go and meet and get names and tell people what you do, because pretty much what you'll find is they go, oh, I want to do that too. So there are places like that to start getting names and start getting out your one or two that you find over time. And eventually your list grows to serious buyers who can buy regularly and who do have cash. But there's no magic place to find that list, that's for sure.
Yes, I see that question a lot on BiggerPockets as well. Hey, where do I find a cash buyer list? You just have to.
Another thing, actually, one thing on the MLS. If you are a broker or if you know a broker, every month there is a list of people who bought that month, the previous month, for cash. And really? Some of them are just buying their personal home, but some of them are actually investors who are paying cash. All of those properties have to go through the MLS, though. So that's the limit with those lists. Like 90% of our properties never hit the MLS. So they're not on there because there was no agent involved anywhere in the transaction. But that does give you another starting point for cash buyers.
Oh, which makes a good real estate agent on your team just another wonderful place to start finding another great source of information. Wow. Okay, so I have another question. I would like to find out about wholesaling a short sale using a land trust. I wonder if the bank would require a proof of funds when making an offer. I don't have the answer to this question.
There's a number of things in there. First of all, short sale, I personally wouldn't touch with the 10-foot pole. I don't have the time to put into a short sale. I'll miss a dozen deals in the meantime. Short sales are so time-consuming and intensive, and you get jerked around by the lender, and I find them very difficult. Some people really like them. I have no idea why, and I'm real happy for somebody to tell me. They are just too time-consuming and cash-intensive because you have to get a loan. You have to close on it. The bank wants all the money when you close. So I don't do that. When we buy something and hold it, we put it in a trust because we don't want these properties out there, all of them in our name, making us a bigger target. So there's a number of reasons to do trust. But that question had a lot of different moving parts in it. Trust is a whole nother issue and big thing. And if you have an attorney who knows how to do that and does closings for you in trust, it's what we do all the time. So it's very doable. But it's a little bit complicated starting out until you know the vocabulary and the steps. But the big thing question was short sale. I just don't know how or why anybody does those, unless as maybe an end user and you were going to move into it. But for an investor, it's a pretty painful process. It's too slow.
Yes, and I have found that the short sale process can take 3 months, 9 months, 12 years.
We've had them since 3 years. Yeah. Some of them get really ridiculous, but yeah, they always take months. And if you have one in 3 months, that's a miracle.
Yeah, that's a quick closing if you can close in 3 months with your short sale. So I would direct LM folk, I would direct you to the BiggerPockets forums and post that question in the wholesaling forum or the short sale foreclosure forum. There's, like Karen said, there's a lot of moving parts in that question. So I'd love to help you out with that answer, but I also don't want to make something up, which is what I'd have to do if I was going to answer that.
I think you're going to put my email at the end, but I'm happy to answer through email because if I don't know something, I can sure research it for you too. Karen at karensperspective.com. Yeah, you had mentioned
let's give Karen some props.
That was going to be added, how to contact us later.
Yes, so on the page on BiggerPockets, it will have the replay of this blab, and then it will also have underneath a link to Karen's BiggerPockets profile, a link to her website, a link to the BiggerPockets podcast show 2, which is the podcast featuring Karen where she talks about subject 2 and investing from a woman's perspective. I am also a woman and I invest from a woman's perspective. Let me tell you that sometimes it's difficult to deal with people who believe that this is a men's only place. It's not. Ladies can do it too. I do it a lot. Let's see. So back to some questions. Here's a bunch of people who can't hear. I'm so sorry. We will have the replay available very shortly after this is done. I already made the page and everything. I just have to embed it. I'm sorry?
J something Diaz, I love his comment. He said, according to the gurus, you have to pay only a low price of $999 for a buyer's list and software to bring the deals to your couch while you sip a martini. And that's what we're all looking for.
Really work.
I just haven't found it to work.
That is exactly how wholesaling works. So, okay, the end. Josh gave us all the answers. Thanks, Josh Diaz.
And then another one here. Do you negotiate with the sellers yourself, or do you hire someone who does that for your business? For the first 8 years, we're now entering our 11th year, I did it along with my husband and another man who works with us. And now I have 3 full-time buyers who go out and have scripts and have our apps and have everything for what we want. And then they bring it back to the office because we give final approval before anything is done, purchased. And they get commission for buying, and then they get commission for selling as well. So we do a lot, and they do a lot to build their own buyers lists.
Okay, that's interesting. And that happened overnight, right? That was a get-rich-quick scheme. You didn't do that over 11 years.
I did that for myself while sipping my martini.
Yes, from your couch, because it only cost $1,000 for that list.
Yeah, so many people want to do this because they think it is fast and easy, which it is once you know how, but it does take time. The very first thing you have to do to be a good wholesaler is you have to, number one, know how to properties. You absolutely have to know the value of the property you're buying. So you have to have a number of good comping sources. And for people who are really new, comping means comparables. You have to have things to compare this property to know what is the true value, so that if somebody were to fix it and sell it, they know what it's going to sell for. You can work with the MLS and agents to find. There are a number of online sources. Zillow has gotten better, but it's very generic. So I use it very casually. We pay for comping sources monthly because that's a way to get good things. If you have any way in your local area to go to your courthouse, we have one county beside us that their courthouse records are amazing. And we can go online, look everything up for free there. But that's the only county in the state. So we pay a source that gets all the data collected from the counties and It's called CRS, I think it's CRSdata.com. Maybe it's Courthouse Retrieval System. They're in a lot of states. They're not in all the states, but they're fantastic. And they give you a lot of information. We use that for comping because it's just so vital that you know what you're buying. That's the very first thing. Buying is the easiest process in any real estate deal because if you pay enough, you can buy anything. If you pay enough, you can buy everything. That's not the goal. Buying a whole lot of houses is not the goal because that means you're paying too much. So you have to know the value. Then the second thing you have to know to be a good wholesaler is renovation costs, because you have to walk through these really scary trash properties and know what it's going to cost you to fix it. Know what your buyer is going to pay to fix it up. Have a really good idea so you know how little to sell it for. And so I'll have people say to me, how much is a roof? And I say, that's like saying, how much is a car? Because it depends what you're going to put the roof on and what kind of roof. There's so many issues. So if you can go around with someone who's doing renovating and learn some costs, or you can go up to the house you live in, your neighbor's house, your friend's house, your parents' house, whatever house, and get some dimensions. How big is your roof? What's the slope of a roof? How many plumbing fixtures do you have? And go to Home Depot and start pricing things. There are things that the gurus will sell you online that they say will tell you pricing. We have purchased an app that gives us pricing, but it's editable, which is great because you're going to find one that works nationwide. Obviously, people in Alaska are paying different prices than Florida, than California, than North Carolina. So we then went to Home Depot or local vendors and put in pricing that was appropriate for our area so that we can use it to help us price renovation costs for what we're looking to buy. So this does take time and education to learn, but every day you'll know you did the day before. So you have to know how to comp, you have to know property values, and you have to know repair costs to be able to know how much you can pay to buy it and how much it's going to cost your buyer to renovate it.
Yes, that is all of that. That was, if you're watching this on the replay, go back and listen to that again because there's so much awesome nuggets of gold in there.
This is the part that's not super easy where people get tripped up because they want to just find an inexpensive property and resell it to someone. But if it was that easy, of course, everybody would be doing it. There is some homework and some learning time that you have to put in and that you will put in as you go through the process to do it.
No. That guy on TV said I could do it tomorrow.
That's right. And you can buy a list. Everybody wants
You're just trying to keep me out. You're just trying to keep competition down. Okay, so go back and re-listen to that whole answer that she just gave you. And I'm going to plug a BiggerPockets book written by Jay Scott, who is a flipper, and it's the book on flipping houses. I believe it's at biggerpockets.com/flipping book. And the book itself comes with a copy of the book on estimating rehab costs. And Jay goes through and gives you a whole lot of things to think about. When you put in a new wall, it's not just 2 sheets of drywall. It's studs, it's nails, it's, paint and texture and. So you need to really know what goes into.
I actually had one of our buyers this morning at a meeting, and I said, how did you come up with those renovation costs? And so he went through and was telling me that he had priced out how much baseboard heaters cost, the thing that you stick on the wall, and how much this cost and how much that cost. And it was great. And I said, okay, and how much is labor? And he totally blanked out because he was really thinking about the things that the house needed. And I said, somebody's got to do all this. So after you've been in a while, you kind of think, how can you forget labor? But obviously you can. So to have a book or something to go by that has, don't forget to add these items in is great. And if somebody tells you a window is going to cost this amount, just be sure you check in your area and you know that, of course, a window costs by size and all that. So those books are great for getting a lot of overview information, but the details are on you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The details are on you. Jay does a great job of giving you an idea, which is awesome for beginners. And I see a lot of wholesalers. I see a lot of beginners in the forums. Hey, I want to start wholesaling. Well, great. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Have you really gone through and, it isn't like the guy on TV said, just like flipping isn't like the flipping shows. And, working.
And that's good for us to keep pointing out too, because I don't want people to stop when it's hard or when they don't know something. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just wrong expectations have been set by these TV shows. It's going to be hard and painful, and you'll make mistakes, and you'll spend too much money. Those are the realities that they don't show on TV. Yeah, those guys aren't really making the numbers they're saying. There's a lot of things that they're not subtracting out of their profit. So don't think you're doing anything wrong.
Yes, that's a really great point. BiggerPockets has, I'm going to plug BiggerPockets. I work for BiggerPockets. We're here because of BiggerPockets, so I'm just going to keep plugging them the whole show. But BiggerPockets has a great forum where you can go, and a great set of forums. You can go and you ask questions, and, don't ask questions like, how do I get started? Well, give more information. What exactly do you want to get started in? But, when you ask an intelligent question on the BiggerPockets forums, you'll get a series of answers. And,
because
it may not be the answer you want, but
it's not just how to do it. The first thing you really need to figure out is, what result are you looking for? What do you want to do? Because you have to determine how much you want to make, when you want to make it, by how many you want to buy a year. And then you can back it down to, if I want to buy 4 a year, how much do I have to do every month? How many sellers do I have to talk to every month to get to that number? How many sellers do I have to talk to just to buy a house? The national average, once you go out and talk to somebody, you're going to talk to about 20 people to make like maybe 8 offers to buy 1 house. So you have to be talking to a lot of people. You're not just going to trip over one. You will from time to time. Hooray, that's the home run we all want. But you have to know what your goal is so you know how much work it's going to take, because it's going to take work. I saw a question go by where somebody asked, do you make, I forget what the word was, crazy offers, aggressive offers, something like that over the phone, because one guru teaches that, or do you go to the property? When I was working by myself, I made more offers over the phone. I would do all the workup and then call people back and say, based on what you've told me, I believe this is what I can offer, and I'll for sure when I come out and look, because people really don't know what their renovation cost is going to be and what's needed on the home and all. So they really can't give you 100% accurate information over the phone. But I have done that and called them and said, this is what I can offer based on the information you've given me. And then I come to the house to make sure. But 90% of the time, and what we tell our buyers is, if it's reasonable, if it's not retail, go out and see and talk to them, because a big part of what we're doing is just educating the seller. They have no idea. And so I'm really there to help them as much as anything. And I'm aware when I'm talking to the seller that I'm also talking to their friends and their neighbors and their family and their coworkers, because I have talked to a number of people where I've never bought their house, but they have referred me to somebody and I have bought their house. So it's never a bad thing to go out and be very kind and gentle with people and just talk to them about the realities, because that's all I go by. I listen to their stories because people want to tell you their stories, and I'm sympathetic and I care, but it doesn't affect my offer. I don't know how much, it doesn't matter how much they need. It doesn't matter how much they owe. None of that matters to my offer. My offer is based on, this is retail. This is how much work it needs. This is how much profit has to be in there. Therefore, this is what I can offer. If it works for both of us, fabulous. And if it doesn't, that's completely fine. And we part, as friends. And I tell them, if you have future questions, call me. It's just a real friendship. And I'm doing what I can to help them out. And if it works for my business, great. It very often does. And if it doesn't, I'm never hurt or offended. The people who really try to berate and make a deal work out typically don't have enough leads.
Yeah, that you don't need to berate the seller because this is the biggest purchase, biggest sale that anybody's ever going to have, or most people, I should say. Some people buy yachts for $100 million.
I'm always compassionate and aware that for them, this is a very emotional experience. For me, it's business. It doesn't work for me if it's emotional.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people don't really understand that. Like, oh, they didn't take my offer, they must hate me. Well, it has nothing to do with you. This is their relationship with the house, and this was their parents' house. They grew up there. Their grandparents built it, whatever. It's only worth what it's worth. It's only worth what somebody else will pay you for it. And I hear,
or you're not going to be in business very long, that's for sure.
Well, exactly. And if you want to, be a charitable trust and just give people money, I'll give you my address. But you're in real estate to make money, and you have to do your math. And if your math doesn't work with their math, then you just say, hey, like you said, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer. If you know anybody else who's trying to sell their house, I'm always looking to buy. And you leave it as happy as you can. And if somebody wants $100,000 for.
Right. And along those same lines, we are doing a service. We are helping people out, because that's another question I get. Well, don't you giving them much money? And we really are a solution. We are helping. And we saw this morning in our meeting, one of the buyers had somebody who had inherited a property and it was trashed. He showed us pictures. And they owed 3 years in back taxes on the property, and they had just had to put a roof on because water was coming in, and she had all this damage and issue. She just wanted it gone. She wanted the taxes paid and something else that were only like $2,400. And so, it was like, offer her $5,000. She'll walk away with $2,000. She wants this headache gone. It costs her money every month. She hates it. She's afraid of it. And she'll still make money. She would have been happy with that. I mean, it fixed up, it was only worth like 40, so it wasn't. But, you're still solving a problem and making a great situation for the other person, because most of these things that we see wholesaling, people have no option how to get rid of it. And we've been in plenty where water is running in from the roof. So we're a solution. We help.
Yeah, and that's, you're not stealing from them, because you're not holding a gun up to their head and saying you have to sell. They're choosing to sell to you at that price. And it isn't
forcing anything. They can always say no, and they do, and that's fine.
There's more down the road.
Yeah, they call back later, 2 months. We've had them even 2-3 years later call back and say, is your offer still good? And then, of course, you have to reevaluate because you don't know. But people realize, yeah, you really were right and you really were helpful. And you're obviously my only solution, so I'm calling you back.
Yeah, you can catch more flies with honey than vinegar. So I really like that saying. I don't like vinegar at all, though. So I'm going through here. Why do people pay thousands for these seminars? There's a lot of
Another question
I'm sorry?
I'd seen earlier that I wanted to address was somebody had said, is wholesaling legal? I want to make sure it's legal in my state, which was fascinating to me. I had never considered it as not being legal, or why somebody would even ask that question. Wholesaling is absolutely legal in every state. It is completely a normal real estate transaction. Wholesaling are normal real estate transactions. You purchase a property from a seller and you close on it with an attorney or a title company, depending on your state. Then you turn around, do whatever you want to it, or don't do anything to it, and you own it. It's yours. You turn around and sell it however you want. There's absolutely no gray areas as far as legality with wholesaling properties. I think the question really meant to be, or should have been, is assigning a property legal. That's what we talked about earlier, where you're just dealing with the purchase and sale contract. You never actually close on the property. You never at any time own it or untitle. So there are gray areas with assigning a property. That is not legal in all 50 states. And even in a lot of states where it is legal, a lot of attorneys will not do those. They just don't want to deal with a property or just that middleman transaction where you're not on title. In North Carolina, it happens to be completely legal if you do it the proper way. There are always plenty of illegal ways to do everything. But so if you need to find out with your state and your own attorneys or title companies if it's legal in your state to do assignments.
Now, what I am under the impression is that assigning is legal because you have the property under contract. If your name is on the contract as the buyer, you are a party to the contract. In the state of Colorado, it says, is this contract assignable? And you check yes or no. Yes, I will assign it to somebody else, or no, I will buy it my own self. So if you are a party to the contract, you can do with that contract what you want. And again, like Karen said, check with your state and your lawyer and all of that. What the problem is, the problem comes up when I don't own a house, but I saw it. So I'm going to try and get you to buy it, Karen. If I'm not a licensed real estate agent and I don't have the property under contract, I am not a party to the contract and I don't have any rights to sell it. You have to be a licensed real estate agent to sell property, to participate in a real estate transaction if you are not on the contract as the buyer or the seller. So again, I believe the legalities come into play when people don't have the property under contract, but they just try to sell it anyway.
Okay, so I'd just like to add a little bit to that. It is not legal in all 50 states to do that. It is actually
okay.
Even if you just have a contract, because not all contracts are assignable, and in some states they do not allow contracts to be assigned. So in North Carolina, just like apparently where you are, Colorado, it is legal. Our contracts, all of our real estate broker contracts say that the seller sells to the buyer. There's a blank line for buyer, and or assigns. That's actually in the language on the contract. It's not assignable if you take that out, if you scratch that out. Some sellers say absolutely not. You cannot assign this contract, and then it's not assignable. In a lot of states, well, in some states, I don't know which ones they are, it's not in there. Their contracts are not assignable. You may be able to get an attorney to change the contract or to write something in where it gives you permission to assign, and then you've got to have an attorney who's willing to defend that in court because it's not normal in your state. And I always recommend, too, when people have attorneys, especially if you're going to change anything on a contract, you don't do it. You have an attorney change it. And always be sure that you have an actus company, whatever they're called, where at least one of the attorneys there is a litigator who will defend in a court of law any changes that are made, because most attorneys are not litigators. So you can find an attorney who's going to change a contract for you. Should you go to court with it, he's not going to defend you because he's not a litigator. So that's another good thing to ask. You know, in our state, we don't allow assignments. I want you to make this contract assignable. He says, okay. And then you say, are you a litigator? Will you defend it in court? And he goes, oh, no, I don't do that. So always be sure if you change a contract. But not all states, even if you have a contract, signed contract, will it hold up in court to be assigned. So,
okay.
And part of then, that was, again, what you discussed were two conversations, because then the second conversation was where it's confused with acting as an agent without a license. That is illegal in every state. If you don't believe me, go to court against the Real Estate Commission and see how that works out for you. They're very powerful. And that's why we have most of the laws that we do in real estate. And most of them are for consumer protection, so I very much appreciate what they do for all of us. But you cannot act in between two people as a finder or a gopher or anything in any state and expect to get paid for it legally without a broker's license. So if you say, Joe, I know you're looking for these properties, you run around and you find him one and he pays you, no, that's acting as a broker, as an agent. Yeah, so just signing a piece of paper, just having a contract in a state that doesn't let you be assigned, it's not okay to assign.
Okay, well, thank you for that clarification. I'm looking through these questions to see if there's another one that...
Oh, another thing I want to point out, just because it came to the top of my brain, I don't know how much time we have left, that I want to warn people about wholesaling or flipping or anything that you do quickly like that is one reason we started with hold properties. And I recommend everybody should have some hold properties, some rental properties, is it gives you a lot of write-offs for taxes. If you're wholesaling a property, don't forget, Uncle Sam's going to take probably at least a third of what you get because it's short-term capital gains. And I have had so many people come to the end of the year, even real estate agents who've had a really great year, and they can't pay the taxes on what they made. About a third of that short-term capital gains, depending on your tax bracket, is going to go to Uncle Sam. So always figure that in your costs. And that's another thing they don't show on the photos. That stuff's not all profit. So if you have enough rentals, which as you know, we have a lot of rentals, we have a lot of write-offs, we can make a lot of profit and not pay tax. If we didn't have rentals, at least a third of our efforts would be going to Uncle Sam, which is fine. Thank you for the roads. Thank you for the military protection. It's all there, but you just figure that in your costs.
Right. No, that's a really good point. That short-term capital gains is taxed at 25%, I believe. Well, depending on your tax bracket.
And we all know it's going to go up. It has to. Our government's broke. We're going to be paying more and more taxes. So be very careful with making sure. Don't slow down on how much you're making. Keep making. Make more. But just know you've got to put a bunch of that aside for taxes. Yes,
that's a good point. Okay.
They're not going to forgive you their taxes. So, damn.
No, they don't. I am going to put in the last call for any more questions for Karen. We've answered the ones on the BiggerPockets forums. I hope we've answered the ones here on the side. If anybody else has any other questions, I'm going to hold off for that. And I'm going to wrap this up by saying that Karen can be found at KarenRittenhouse.com. Is that the right website for you, Karen?
Yes, KarenRittenhouse.com. Sure, it's my website. Karen at Karen'sPerspective.com is my email address.
And Karen is also on the BiggerPockets forums. She's at BiggerPockets. Just do a search on Karen Rittenhouse. I will also have a link to her under the Blab replay window once we get this all set up. A link to her website, a link to her podcast, a link to her BiggerPockets profile. We talked about a couple of other things. The J. Scott book. I will put a link to the J. Scott book, and I'll have to go back through here and figure out what all we talked about because we talked about a lot today. Karen, I don't see any more questions. You can, of course, always ask in the forums as well.
I was just looking over my list that I'd made knowing what our topic was going to be today. And you'd mentioned something earlier about double closings. As far as an assignment, when you do an assignment, you don't close, you don't own it. So the seller sees how much profit you make in between. And sometimes people aren't comfortable letting the seller see what profit they're making, or, maybe for whatever reason, they don't want the seller to see that. So instead of just assigning where at closing, the person you sold to is actually the purchaser and the seller is going to see everything on the HUD and see what you made. Some people say, well, I'd rather do a double close so the seller doesn't see how much profit I make. And in that situation, what happens is you agree to buy for, say, $50,000, and then you're selling it for $60,000. So you go into your closing and you sign everything with your attorney to purchase for $50,000. And then 30 minutes, an hour in, and signs everything saying, I'm buying for $60,000. And it's all done without you having to bring any money at the table because the attorney uses that $60,000 to pay off your $50,000 and you get the difference. But that keeps the seller from seeing the $10,000 that you made in between. So not all attorneys will do a double closing. So as much as you might want to do one, that's another thing you have to talk with your attorney and see if they're comfortable doing a double closing.
Sure. And that's not really something you can do. That's not really something you can do on your first wholesale.
Right. It's just terminology that people will hear and they'll say, well, should I do that or shouldn't I do that? And all these things will come up over time as you do more and more deals. and you'll be more and more familiar.
Sure. So I have one last question, and I have lost your video signal, but I still hear you. What's that website again for comps you mentioned earlier? I think it was CRS Data or something.
CRS, and then I think it's CRS Data, DATA.com. It's Courthouse Retrieval System. They're not in all 50 states, but they're in a lot of them. And they get the information from the courthouse. Some of the things that are great about that is they have recordings for everything that's purchased and sold. Like everything I do, they have the information on. The MLS doesn't get that. If it doesn't go through a real estate agent, it's not on the MLS. So none of their comps show all of our investor deals. So that's one of these other comp sources are good to go by. And it's good to do several. So if one's way off, you know something. You don't ever want to just use one comping source.
Okay. And I will double check that link and make sure I include that in the show notes as well. Okay. Well, I would like to thank everybody for coming to watch our show. I would like to thank you, Karen, for talking about wholesaling with me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm sorry about all the technical difficulties. So.
It's my fault. I'm sure it's computers don't like me. So everybody's saying, thank you, Karen. If everybody will go, we're going to have, I'm going to plug a new one in January. I'm going to talk to Chad Carson and Marcia Maynard about leases and all the things you should have in your lease. And that'll be in January, and I'll post a link to that in the BiggerPockets forums as well. So we are out of here. Thank you so much, Karen. Have a great day. I'm going to go shovel 47 inches of snow.
Good luck having with that. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time listening.
Okay. Bye, Karen. Okay. Thank you very much for visiting us. And don't forget to visit biggerpockets.com. And you can ask Karen some questions. Just make sure you @mention her so she sees them. And the @mention is, you have to be friends with her. @mention me, and then I can @mention her. You just do the @ on top of the 2 on your keyboard and type in Mindy Jensen, and I should pop up. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye. Oh, thanks for the props.